The Battle of the Citadel. In 2183, a rogue Spectre named Saran Arterius attacked the Citadel through a functioning mass relay hidden inside a statue in the Presidium. Saran brought a combined force of Croghan and Geth infantry from Ilos, timing the attack so that he would be at the Citadel's controls when the Geth fleet and his flagship, Sovereign, arrived. In the battle that followed, the Destiny Ascension Dreadnought evacuated the Citadel Council, but ordered the ward's arms closed, sealing them and the Geth inside an impregnable shell, cutting off any reinforcements for escape. This tactic would have wholly destroyed the Council fleet were it not for the actions of Commander Shepard, who had followed Saran through the relay from Ilos. Led by Shepard's ship Normandy, the Systems Alliance 5th Fleet assembled under the command of Admiral Hackett and waited just outside the Citadel's closed arms. Meanwhile, Shepard fought Saran's forces inside the Citadel and eventually forced the ward arms open again. Shepard called for the Normandy to concentrate firepower on Sovereign. The 5th Fleet took its cue from the Normandy and turned all firepower on the Geth flagship, letting the Destiny Ascension and other fleeing Council ships perish fighting the Geth fleet. At about the same time Shepard killed Saran, Sovereign's once impervious kinetic barrier overloaded and the 5th Fleet focused its military might to shatter the flagship. The Geth fleet was soon decimated without its leader. With the Citadel Council and nearly everyone in its line of succession killed, humanity stepped into the power vacuum. Ambassador Donnell O'Dina and Captain David Anderson were instrumental in pulling together a new galactic government, with humans as the dominant voice. The underside of the wards, between the inhabited superstructures and impenetrable outer hull, are called the Foundations. These dangerous areas are filled with life support systems and power plants. Officially, only the Keepers are allowed in the Foundations. In reality, the Foundations are the slums of the Citadel, home to criminals, minorities, transients, and occasional stateless exiles. Some stay in the Foundations of their own will, others end up there when the opportunities they sought in the Citadel do not come. The station's recycling systems are located in the Foundations. These manufacture a variety of artificial organic pastes that can be eaten for sustenance. They are free and nutritious, but nearly tasteless and of unpleasant texture. Poorer Citadel residents quickly become adept at dressing up this bland fare with sauces and spices, while imported foodstuffs are a popular luxury of the wealthy. Terra Firma is an alliance political party formed after the First Contact War. Its policy agenda is based on the principle that Earth must stand firm against alien influences. This covers a variety of legislation. Recent activities by Terra Firma include opposition to a law requiring high school alien language study, a proposal to increase tariffs on alien imports, and leading a popular movement to mark the First Contact War with a public holiday. Though founded by well-meaning individuals who feared the subversion of native human cultures under a wave of alien vogue, Terra Firma's agenda attracts many jingoists and xenophobes. Ascension. Written by human author Drew Karpyshyn, the popular military historical novel Ascension focuses on several lives warped or destroyed by the human survivalist cult Cerberus. Following the Citadel attack of 2182 and the accelerated rise of human influence in the galaxy, Cerberus instituted Ascension, a secret biotics program aimed at producing a superhuman warrior. Biotics prodigy Gillian Grayson, a 12-year-old autistic girl, suffered for the sins of her father, a secret Cerberus operative and red sand addict. Paul Grayson was ensnared in a web of criminality involving a Quarian traitor and extending to Saran Arterius, the Geth, and a terminal threat to the Quarian Flotilla. Having fled to the Terminus systems with his daughter after exposure of Cerberus's link to Ascension, Grayson was pursued by Gillian's teacher, scientist Kaylee Sanders, initiating a chain of tragedies that demonstrated Cerberus's nearly unlimited power and boundless ambition. Revelation is a popular military historical novel by human writer Drew Karpyshyn that dramatises human conflicts and political expansion following the 2148 discovery of the Prothean mass relay on Pluto and the beginning of human galactic exploration. In 2165, years before his rise to political prominence, Lieutenant David Anderson was a young warrior of the Turian War, investigating the destruction of top-secret military research station Shanxi. Every scientist stationed at Shanxi had been slaughtered except Carly Sanders, who disappeared with secret files, making her Anderson's prime suspect. The book traced Anderson's dangerous investigation of Sanders, which included run-ins with the Blue Sun mercenaries and a Croghan bounty hunter. The investigation uncovered illegal research into AI, and forced Anderson into an alliance with human-hating Turian Spectre Saranarterius, who would eventually enter into a genocidal collaboration with the Geth. Planet Eta. 2 beautiful moons, 1 spectacular ring, 0 neighbours, says a popular advertisement for this terminus system's world. Eta is known for its sparsely settled population, despite being a garden planet with a colony nearly a century old. Blessed with a mild climate, wildlife no more dangerous than that on Earth, and soil and bacteria amenable to imported plants, Eta would appear to be an unexploited paradise. However, it is unpopular for 2 reasons. The first and most obvious is that its moon, Lite, is in an unstable orbit that will lead to a planetary impact and an extinction-level event within the next 2 centuries. As such, all investment in the planet is short-term, and the biggest business is selling off the local biota to the highest bidder. The second drawback is the level of violence on the planet. Like the rest of the Phoenix massing cluster, Eta was briefly considered part of Citadel space during its first wave of colonisation. However, when the colony broke off to become an independent planet in 2133, the Council let the doomed planet go with less than a day of debate. Free from any real governing body, Eta's history has since been filled with wars between small frontier town city-states over its resources. The result is a dangerous world where the average citizen is expected to be self-reliant to the point of fending for themselves against cutthroat corporations, strong-arm militia groups, and even Geth incursions. The fighting is so frequent that the name of the planet itself has changed more than 11 times. In a sign of blunt indifference, standard Citadel galaxy maps refer to the world by the name given to it by human colonists in the latter half of the century. Cerberus xenobiologists believed until recently that the collectors were coordinated by a biotically active caste, similar to other insectoid alien species. New evidence suggests that the collectors have a singular commander, a so-called collector general that has never been seen on the battlefield. Instead, it selects its minions as remote platforms for its consciousness, in a process that has been likened to a biological hack or a cybernetic version of demonic possession. The Collector General can send a secure signal to any one of its minions, smoothly take control of their motor functions, and awaken their previously dormant biotic potential. In a matter of seconds, even the lowliest Collector drone can be upgraded to a battle-hardened biotic commander. If the Collector dies, the General can simply activate and control another body. Post-mortem analysis reveals that this command signal relies on cybernetic implants directly installed in the Collector's cerebellums, but how the technology functions is presently unknown. Coordinating sensory input and motor functions simultaneous with remotely amplifying biotic abilities is beyond the grasp of current human science. Why such an advanced species would be interested in humans is puzzling. More disturbing still, victims of the Collectors say that the General has spoken to them and referred to itself by a human name, Harbinger. Feared throughout the galaxy as nightmarishly violent warriors, the Croghan are both aided and hobbled by their legendary blood rage. In the grip of that madness, Croghan becomes seemingly invincible, but are merely totally unresponsive to pain. Blood-enraged Croghan fight regardless of injury level, to the extent that Croghan shorn of all 4 limbs continue gnashing past brain death until total somatic death. Supremely resilient, hyper-violent blood rage is the synergy of 2 aspects of Croghan neurology. The first aspect is a positive feedback loop in which adrenaline, also activated by fear or rage, suppresses serotonin, the brain chemical that induces serenity. The second is the overdeveloped Croghan limbic system. In Croghan, as in humans, fear or rage shifts mental control from the frontal lobes, responsible for reasoning, to the limbic system, responsible for aggression and survival. During that shift, Croghan and humans exhibit diminished capacity for logic and self-control. Prior to the ecological devastation of Tuchanka, blood rage was extremely rare among the Croghan. Back then, while all Croghan were capable of heightened anger and violence in fight-or-flight situations, almost none experienced insensitivity to pain. The 1% who did were those suffering serotonin suppression. At that time, Croghan society regarded the condition as pathological and medicated or imprisoned sufferers to protect them and society. Following nuclear ecocide 4 millennia ago, evolution selected only those Croghan afflicted with blood rage for survival. Today there is no memory among the Croghan of a life without mindless, murderous fury. Though the exact fate of species captured by the Collectors is unclear, the humanoid appearance of the Saiyans give ghastly clues. The Saiyans' frame and skull are similar to those of a human or a Sari, but the bone structure is overlaid with a metallic resin. Posthumous examination of their bodies reveals a skin tone resembling that of Reaper husks, but their transformation process seems more extensive. Like husks, they are cybernetically modified on a nanoscale so that they can operate even in hard vacuums. Hoses rather than veins and muscle tissue join major portions of the body together. One arm is replaced with a construct that fits a large rifle, turning the creature into a humanoid weapons platform, and a fleshy sac is supported by the creature's back and head. These sacs contain brain matter and spinal tissue, too much to have come from just one victim. This indicates Saiyans are an amalgam of several individuals, with one primary victim providing the frame and several secondaries providing the flesh for a decentralized semi-mechanical nervous system. This decentralization makes them highly resistant to gunshot wounds, even a headshot is not a certain kill. The Saiyans Weapons, however, indicate that Saiyans retain some living tissue, or at least sustain some of the same electrochemical reactions as those of a human biotic. The weapon creates a powerful warp effect, which is consistent with the ESO nodules visible in the Saiyans' expansive nervous system. The weapon creates a powerful warp effect, which is consistent with the ESO nodules visible in the Saiyans' expansive nervous system. Given the rarity of human biotics, it seems likely that these dust-form ESO nodules are deposited during their transformation, rather than requiring a biotic victim in the first place. Originally an ARC ship designed to carry agricultural animals, the Purgatory was taken by the Blue Sun's mercenary company during a large-scale battle in the Skyllian Berge. In a years-long reconstruction of its interior, the Blue Suns repurposed it to hold sapient prisoners, supposedly because they captured so many in their conflicts throughout the galaxy. When media outlets started investigating claims that the ship was used for slaving operations, the Blue Suns turned a public relations nightmare into a regular income source. Claiming to be in full accordance with Citadel law, the crew of Purgatory now regularly lands on planets or space stations claiming that they can no longer hold their prisoners because of cost overruns. To avoid keeping prisoners under inhumane conditions, they will have to release them at the nearest port, dumping the scum of the galaxy directly into the local population. Faced with such a scenario, the government usually grants Purgatory's crew massive discounts in fuel, food and repairs as long as they go away. Some even offload their own prisoners to Purgatory for a fee, grateful to have a problem relocated somewhere other than their backyard. Such unfortunates go to the dark depths of the ship, never to be seen again by their families or contacts. Purgatory is minimally armed with Guardian defences. Though a cruiserweight ship, it relies on the Blue Sun's fighters to prevent any attacks bent on a jailbreak or similar events. Object Rho. Dr. Amanda Kenson's scientific team has catalogued 3 major discoveries on the artefact encased in the 157 Golgotha asteroid. First, the large artefact is rooted into the core of the asteroid and has a biotic barrier that is similar to, but much more powerful than, a biotic stasis field. This gives it an unnatural resilience to alteration or damage, and even prevents state-of-the-art laser drilling from extracting the smallest piece for analysis. Second, the object's interior is energetically active, with a quantum stasis field rivaling that of Prothean technology found in mass relays. Like those creations, it activates in response to threat, at which point the artefact consumes a phenomenal amount of power. Dr. Kenson's team believes the object draws this power directly from dark matter, though how is still unknown. The third discovery is that the object broadcasts signals and information on many different spectra. One such pulse, suspected to be similar to a quantum entanglement communicator, reaches into a Reaper territory. Another broadcast is infrasound, consistent with frequencies that trigger feelings of awe and fear in humans, a known factor in Reaper indoctrination. Kenson's laboratory is filled with equipment dedicated to monitoring any signal coming from the artifact in the hopes that some clue will prove the Reaper's undoing before it's too late. The planet Aratot. Nothing is impossible, says the Hegemony propaganda poster that depicts a muscular Batarian miner under an Aratot sky, his rebreather held away from his face as if he's just taken it off. The image sums up millions of man-hours of labour on the Batarian planet and represents, or misrepresents, much of its history. 2 decades ago, Aratot, like several planets in the Skyllian Verge, was claimed by both human and Batarian governments, but the Alliance backed out after learning about the atmosphere's dangerously low pressure and oxygen levels. Instead, they concentrated their colonial efforts on planets that could support human life without the aims of domed habitats and rebreathers. Human governments saw it as a wise move, Batarians saw it as cowardly. The Batarians rose to the colonisation challenge, shipping in large numbers of labourers. They took the high financial costs and casualties due to accidents or logistical snafus in stride. Large-scale dumping of cyanobacteria has increased the oxygen in the atmosphere by a fraction of 1%, a modest increase that the Hegemony trumpets as a sign of their eventual victory. Short-term profits on Aratot are largely made in the minerals sector through mining the extremely metal-rich planetary crust. The dark side to the mining does not appear on the propaganda poster. The majority of labourers are indentured servants or slaves. Aratot is rumoured to have military bases on its surface and throughout its solar system, though details are heavily restricted by the hegemony's Ministry of Information Control. Human merchant ships rarely come to the planet, outcompeted by local companies that benefit from heavy economic protections. The average Aratot citizen only sees humans on the news, usually featured in stories of trials and executions of accused spies. The Alpha Relay. Discovering the age of a mass relay is not an easy task. Relays can shield themselves to preserve their integrity down to the quantum level, so taking a sample for analysis proves nigh impossible. Relays also maintain self-cleaning cycles, wiping away potential evidence, though damage or dormancy can cause this cycle to break down, such as in the case of the Charon relay, which became covered in ice. A breakthrough was recently made by Dr. Amanda Kenson, who revisited old methods of dating the relays by testing dust trapped in their gravity wells. By comparing the relative velocity of relays to that of the stars they orbit, as well as the composition of the dust around the dormant relays against the dust at known locations in their star systems, Kenson could create a timeline of when a relay passed through the dust. The result dates the relay back millions of years, some may even predate the Protheans. Kenson concluded that the oldest known relay is in Batarian space. Dubbed Alpha, it resides near the star Bahak and is unusual in its potential range and versatility. Alpha usually sends and receives mass at the range of a normal secondary relay, but if certain controls are adjusted, it becomes powered by an unprecedented amount of dark energy that could send cargo to 16 other relays and even across a great distance to the Citadel. Hegemony authorities have kept this quiet, fearing retaliation from council species who would assume hostile intent if they found a sudden new route into their space. It goes without saying that the Reapers have no such fear. Launched in 2167, Fornax magazine described itself as the galaxy's finest xenophilia. By its 5th year, Fornax became the first human magazine to offer full 5-sensory stimulation, a previously unaffordable magazine technology made profitable by the economy of scale. With a monthly publishing run of 127 million, available in hard copy and direct download, Fornax offers a range of alien models with particular emphasis on the unisexual Asari, although both genders of Quarians, Drell, Batarians and Volus are regularly depicted. Specialty editions such as Genital Core and Croghan service devoted but smaller markets. The workhorse of mercenary bands throughout the galaxy, the Mantis is a 2-man vectored thrust aircraft that excels in close air support roles. Highly modular in construction, the Mantis can be reconfigured as a low-altitude gunship, a fighter, a high-altitude bomber, or even a single stage-to-orbit spaceplane that can engage enemy craft around a planet or space station. The only role that the Mantis cannot perform is that of a true deep space fighter, as it has no FTL drive. First rolled off the assembly lines in 2170, the Mantis remains in service in dozens of armies across the galaxy. It is most commonly used as air support in pitched ground battles, in a configuration that sports 2 pods for Inferno PKRs, precision kill rockets, and a chin-mounted M350 mass accelerator cannon. Its Kinetic Barriers, thermal decoy system, and electronic countermeasures suite make the Mantis far less vulnerable to surface-to-air attacks than previous generations of aircraft. Like most modern planes, the Mantis uses an Element 0 core to ease the load of the engines with a mass effect field, allowing it to take off vertically or hover in place using minimum fuel. This also gives it far greater range and speed than the helicopters and jump jet aircraft that once filled its niche. A Mantis can take off from Baton Rouge, reach Moscow in a few hours, fly a ground attack mission, and return home before having to refuel. Faster-than-light drives use Element 0 cores to reduce the mass of the ship, allowing higher rates of acceleration. This effectively raises the speed of light within the mass effect field, allowing high-speed travel with negligible relativistic time dilation effects. Starships still require conventional thrusters, chemical rockets, commercial fusion torch, economy ion engines, or military anti-proton drives, in addition to the FTL drive core. With only a core, a ship has no motive power. The amount of ESO and power required for a drive increases exponentially to the mass being moved and the degree it is being lightened. Very massive ships or very high speeds are prohibitively expensive. If the field collapses while the ship is moving at faster than light speeds, the effects are catastrophic. The ship is snapped back to sublight velocity, the enormous excess energy shed in the form of lethal Cherenkov radiation. A mnemonic neural recall stimulator, also known as a grey box, is a device implanted in the brain to assist and prioritise memory. Originally developed to slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease, grey boxes function by helping the amygdala chunk incoming stimuli into recognisable pieces for memory consolidation. Each memory is assigned a shape or sensation from other memories, tying the concepts together into a block that is more easily recalled. When Synthetic Insights first released them onto the market in 2140, grey boxes were hailed as a way humans could level the playing field between themselves and the Solarians, whose natural eidetic memories gave them an advantage. However, because the implant procedure of a grey box requires the brain to irreversibly shift its workload over to the machine, software bugs or attempted removal of the grey box for maintenance purposes could lead to incapacitating brain damage. For this reason, grey boxes soon became used only by those with a dire need for photographic memories, such as researchers and spies. In 2175, sale and implantation of grey boxes were outlawed by the Systems Alliance following an incident with Abraham Rumoy, an employee of the Alliance intelligence agency. Rumoy was believed to be a professional con man and thief named Keija Okuda, who accessed and sold classified data. However, prosecuting attorneys were unable to use his assisted memories as evidence, due to the Alliance court system's prohibitions against self-incrimination, based on the Fifth Amendment of the old US Constitution. Rumoy soon disappeared off the map following his trial, further heightening suspicions that he was a Okuda and living off of ill-gotten gains. When found outside a human head, grey boxes are usually accessed with a specialised reader. A separate decryption key is almost always required, as users with data sensitive enough to require a grey box invariably install their own encryption. The gun that killed 2 presidents is the infamous legacy of the Casa Fabrications Model 12 Locust. Originally created for the Systems Alliance, who wanted a lightweight weapon for high-gravity worlds, the Locust was designed to overcome the limitations of traditional submachine guns at long range. With bullet velocity of modern weapons already pushed to the limit, the Locust designers sought a way to improve accuracy through reducing the weapon kick. They created an internal floating bed that absorbs the gun's recoil with minimal jarring of the gun frame itself. The barrel, magazine, chamber and operating mechanism all move within this bed, which absorbs shock with springs and buffers. This creates a platform stable enough that the Locust can use auto-targeting software, usually reserved for match-grade weapons. The Locust's lethality on shielded targets has been amply demonstrated. In 2176, a Virginian patent clerk named Michael Moser Lang brought a Locust concealed in a shoulder-mounted video camera to a photo opportunity between Enrique Aguila, President of the United North American States, and Chinese People's Federation Premier Ying Zhong. At a distance of about 25 metres, Lang pierced the kinetic barriers covering the stage with the first burst, and when Zhong heroically tackled Aguila to remove him from the line of fire, Lang's succeeding bursts went through the Premier's body and fatally wounded both men. Donovan Hock's collection contains 2 antique ivory-handled Locusts, modified to take thermal clips. A detachable data drive rests in the lining of the box, containing Omnitool specifications for fabricating copies. A quick trip to the extranet reveals one of the weapons has the same serial number as Lang's original. If it's a fake, it's extremely well made. The Statue of Liberty was the target of several terrorist attacks over its 210-year lifetime, but in 2096, a motley crew called Freedom's First finally brought the statue down. Protesting the induction of Canada and Mexico into the United North American States, the New York chapter of Freedom's First wanted a symbol that they would secede from this new union if necessary. In the early morning hours of November the 1st, they smuggled small arms and 15.5 tons of high explosives onto Liberty Island. Shooting or capturing the guards, they planted the explosives under the pedestal and detonated them at 7:37 a.m. The statue crashed to the ground in pieces, unexpectedly killing 4 of the Freedom's First terrorists. The remaining team members were apprehended after long manhunts, but the damage was done. The outrage at the secessionists kindled the fires of the Second American Civil War. On November the 4th, President Caitlin Chung signed an executive order to rebuild the statue. Approximately 1/10 of the steel beams and copper plating from the destroyed statue was recovered and used in creating the new one. The original's head was put on display at the National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. It remained there for 2 years until the Battle of Washington. During heavy shelling by secessionist forces, the head disappeared. A new statue was completed in 2101, and the fate of the original pieces was left for speculation and pulp novels. Interest flared up briefly in 2159 when photos surfaced of the head in the cargo hold of a star freighter, but by that time human media were far more concerned with the future. In the face of humanity spreading out amongst thousands of new planets, a statue titled "Liberty Enlightening the World" seemed small and quaint by comparison. More glittering than diamonds, more expensive than surgery, is how travel agents describe the planet of Bekenstein behind closed doors. Given the opportunity to colonise planets after the First Contact War, the Systems Alliance chose Bekenstein to be their trading arm, producing goods to be sold on the nearby Citadel. Cracking the vast galactic marketplace proved difficult. The first human products sold on novelty alone, then lack of demand hit Bekenstein's economy hard. Only in the second generation of colonists did the planet find a sustainable niche in high-quality entertainment and luxury goods. Once brand awareness sunk in, aliens flocked to Bekenstein's many spaceports. The planet today boasts more millionaires and billionaires per capita than any other human colony. Though its crime tends to be white-collar and non-violent, Bekenstein is not without its dark side. Both its suicide rate and inflation are extremely high compared to other worlds. Unemployment is artificially low because few people immigrate to the expensive planet without having a job lined up, and the cost of living is so great that unemployed workers typically leave for kinder planets after just a few months. Those who stay see themselves as tougher, sharper, and more skillful than the rest, as well as capable of getting respect and employment on any lesser planet. As a popular song says, if you can make it on the beck, you got 'em by the neck. Drell Biology. Drell are omnivorous, reptile-like humanoids with an average lifespan of 85 galactic standard years. They give live birth to their young, who are capable of eating solid food from the moment they are born. Drell appearance is very similar to Asarian humans, but their muscle tissue is slightly denser than that of humans, giving them a wiry strength. Many of their more reptilian features are concealed, like a 3-chambered heart with a muscular ridge that is capable of shunting oxygenated or deoxygenated blood as needed. One unique characteristic, however, is the hyoid bone in their throats, which allows them to inflate their throats and produce vocal sounds outside of the human range. Would-be assassins have noted that these two features make Drell extremely hard to strangle or suffocate. Because the Drell ancestors emerged from arid rocky deserts, the humid ocean-covered Hanar homeworld of Karja proved tolerable only when the Drell stayed inside a climate-controlled dome city. Due to this huge disparity in the two species' homeworld environments, the leading cause of death among Drells on Karja is a bacterial lung disease called Keprel's syndrome. Within a generation of the Drell's arrival on the planet, the disease had become resistant to Hanar antibiotics and other treatments. Once an infection settles in, death is slow but imminent. Transplants may buy time, but as the infection spreads to other major organs, there comes a point of diminishing returns and eventual system failure. The Flotilla, or Migrant Fleet, is a fleet of roughly 50,000 starships that houses over 17 million Quarians. The largest collection of starfaring vessels in the galaxy, the fleet is so large it may take days for all the ships to pass through a mass relay. The ships are constantly repaired, replaced and upgraded to comfortably house as many Quarians as possible. Typically, ships specialise in roles for the fleet, from the enormous agricultural live ships to the shielded lab ships to the repurposed freighters known as home ships that house Quarian children, young parents and educators. Employed Quarians typically live in the ship they work on, since commuting from ship to ship ties up resources with unnecessary docking procedures. Even within the flotilla, Quarians on most ships will remain encased in their protective suits. Rarely, Quarians will meet on clean ships for specific purposes such as medical services or reproduction. When this occurs, they remove their suits, knowing full well that it is likely they will spend a few days having allergic reactions or getting over infections as their weakened immune systems compensate for each other's presence. The M45 One Firestorm Flamethrower is a product of human ingenuity, ruthlessness and industrial espionage. Its origin dates back to the 2160s, when human colonists to new planets used flamethrowers to clear vegetation or ice. The fuels performed erratically on planets with extremely cold temperatures and differing air compositions from Earth. Realising this could be a problem for military units, Systems Alliance intelligence operatives stole the Turian design for the Helios flamethrower, a battle-tested workhorse that functioned in nearly every environment. The result was the Firestorm, an anti-personnel and anti-armour flame unit that can accept a variety of liquid fuels. The Turian design used low-octane hydrocarbons thickened with dendra oil, which is taken from large marine animals similar to Earth's whales. Humans then reverse-engineered a synthetic composite with almost identical properties that could be fabricated from heavy weapon fuel cells using an omnitool. The result is a sticky spray that burns at approximately 1600 degrees Celsius, a less intense fire than plasma weapons but covering a significantly wider target area. Adding to the trauma is the choking smoke produced by the spray, and if the target's armour is breached, the fires quickly consume the oxygen within. The Firestorm may not be the most efficient weapon in the system's alliance arsenal, but the sheer ugliness of how it kills ensures it is always the most feared. Founded in 2160 by the human mercenary Zaid Masani in Vido Santiago, the Blue Suns were initially a Skillian Verge protection racket. As they expanded in numbers and influence, the two co-founders disagreed vehemently on many issues. Finally, after arguing about whether to recruit the slave trading Rotarians into their ranks, Vido ambushed Zaid and shot him in the head. Believing Zaid dead, Vido took full control of the Blue Suns and hired whatever Batarians he pleased. Soon he had crowned one named Solum del Serra as the titular head of operations. It was a move designed to placate his Batarian investors and draw fire from would-be assassins. It worked on both counts, and the partnership has lasted to this day. Over the decades, the Suns grew into a fearsome combat force spanning dozens of planets in Citadel space, the Verge, and the Terminus systems. Knowing that a good logistical team is key to fielding an army, Vido diversified the Suns, selling arms, training and supplies as often as taking contracts to crack skulls. Even when the Suns suffered heavy losses, Vido's entrepreneurial expertise ensured new recruits could replace the old. All that was lost was the truth. Today, only a handful of trusted Mechs ever know who Vido Santiago is, let alone his old partner Zaid. Bring firearms and antihistamines is what veteran guides say about this lush garden world. First colonised in 2160, Zoria's temperate and tropical zones are overrun with plants and fungi of all kinds. As a result, the air in most habitable areas is choked with pollen and spores that range from benign to deadly. The scattered colonies across the planet have resorted to clear-cutting and slash-and-burn farming to create habitable zones, and the more rural areas, where the spores are thickest, are populated only by Vorcha. Lax ecological laws allow mining and manufacturing industries to flourish and pollute cheaply, as the planet's carrying capacity far outstrips the current size of its colonies. Zoria is also home to the Blue Suns Mercenary Company, who dominate the colony's security forces. The Suns enjoy nearly unlimited influence with local politicians and judges, ensuring that no other private military contractors can compete with them economically. Nearly every colony has a Suns recruiting station, if not a training camp, though this has hardly made the planet any safer. Piracy, drugs, vice, and political violence are commonplace. Intended for next-generation fighter craft, the Heed Industries' Helios thruster module propulsion system far outpaces the typical liquid hydrogen-liquid oxygen reactions that power a frigate's manoeuvring thrusters. By using a metastable metallic hydrogen, the Helios boasts a fuel that burns at far greater efficiency than liquid hydrogen and oxygen. Navigators can execute the numerous small course corrections inherent to any long-distance travel without fear of exhausting the ship's fuel supplies. This net gain extends to forward impulse as well. A ship powered by antiprotons can coast temporarily using the Helios to reach an inferior but highly sustainable speed. Such efficiency lowers antiproton consumption, a constant concern for any warship. When a Helios-propelled ship must refuel, however, it typically relies on a large carrier or nearby planetary factory to synthesize the metallic hydrogen. This process uses extremely dense mass effect fields to create the metal under pressure of 1 million Earth atmospheres, an activity most safely done while planetside. While that process may seem like a drawback compared to skimmer ships that can gather hydrogen and oxygen from anywhere in the universe, the combat superiority of the Helios' manoeuvring capabilities is often a worthwhile trade-off. The same efficiency that allows for micro-burn course correction can power rapid bursts of motion. Once a pilot becomes used to the ship's new energetic responses, she can easily put the ship wherever and at whatever angle she desires. Space combat trans-relay assaults. The crucial choice for any attack through mass relays is how to divide the fleet for transit. The accuracy of a relay's mass projection depends on the mass being moved and by how far it's going. Any long distance and/or high mass jump will see drift. That is, a ship may be hundreds or millions of kilometres from its intended drop point in any direction from the relay. Distance can't be chosen by admirals, but a relay is told how much mass to transit. For example, if told to move 1 million metric tons of mass, the relay will scan the approach corridor, find 4 250,000-ton freighters, and transit them together, maintaining their relative positions. A commander has the option of moving his fleet as one large, coherent formation that may be wildly off position, or breaking it up into many smaller formations that will be individually closer to the intended attack point but could be widely dispersed. Conservative assault doctrine holds that fleets should be moved en masse, maintaining concentration of force and reducing the chances of collision. The only time it is reasonable to split up a formation is during blockade running. All races provide their fleets with organic fighter support. Cruisers fit a handful in the space between the interior pressure hulls and the exterior armour. Dreadnoughts have a hangar deck within the hull. Humans, who had only recently graduated from surface to space combat, were the first to build ships wielding fighters as the main armament. In fleet combat, carriers stay clear of battle, launching fighters bearing disruptor torpedoes. Fighters are the primary striking power of the ship. If a carrier enters mass accelerator range of the enemy, things have gone very wrong. It is possible to recover and rearm fighters during combat, though most carriers seal the flight deck and try to stay out of the way. The flight deck is essentially a corridor through the armour and into the heart of the vessel. A single well-placed torpedo is enough to gut a carrier. Alliance carriers are named after great leaders, artists and intellectuals from human history. There are few wide-open spaces in Quarian spacecrafts. Live ships are the exception. Each ship is a massive hydroponics facility, growing thousands of tons of genetically modified staple crops and artificial light and in highly enriched soil. The surface of a live ship is studded with docking bays, so as many shuttles as possible can distribute the foods throughout the flotilla on a daily basis. When received, the crops are sterilised with radiation, ground up into nutritious pastes, and pumped into Quarian suits through feeding tubes. In return, waste products that could be used as fertiliser or compost are returned to the live ships through an efficient, if odorous, recycling program. Live ships do not hold animals. The Quarians consume a vegan diet, driven not by ethics but by practicality. Captive animals require space and consume large amounts of water and plant matter. The Quarians cannot afford such an inefficient resource to calorie ratio, to say nothing of a live animal's disease or allergen potential. As a result, when the flotilla arrives in the star system where life is based on the same dextro amino acids that the Quarians consume, pastes based on animal proteins fetch highly inflated prices, and the vendors are typically mobbed by Quarians wanting a new taste sensation. The sickness that often follows these binges is treated much the same as hangovers are in human culture, painful but part of the overall experience of excess. The M44 Hammerhead infantry fighting vehicle is a highly manoeuvrable Mass Effect assisted armoured vehicle. Using 3 solid fuel rocket thrusters instead of wheels, the Hammerhead hovers over the battlefield at up to 120 km an hour, allowing it to maintain formation with swift armoured units, skim across calm water, and even leap terrain obstacles. Backup micro boosters guarantee locomotion, so even destruction of 2 main thrusters leaves the vehicle capable of full mobility. The Hammerhead retains most features of interplanetary fighting vehicles. An airtight interior, 360-degree kinetic barriers, and a guided missile system ensure accuracy during even aggressive manoeuvring. Its electronic countermeasures extend to laser detection, chaff, active thermal masking, and ground-penetrating weapon-sniffing radar. The Hammerhead's navigation control emulates that of tanks, so tank drivers can operate Hammerheads with no additional training. Factory-issue Hammerheads therefore have no altimeter or similar sensors and are best used at the standard cruising altitude, 2 meters off the ground. Mass accelerators propel solid metal slugs via electromagnetic attraction and repulsion. A slug lightened by a mass effect field can be accelerated to extremely high speeds, emitting previously unattainable projectile velocities. The primary determinant of a mass accelerator's destructive power is length. The longer the barrel, the longer the slug can be accelerated, the higher the slug's final velocity, and therefore the greater its kinetic impact. Slugs are designed to squash or shatter on impact, increasing the energy they transfer to its target. Without collapsibility, slugs would punch through their targets while inflicting only minimal damage. Rather than being mounted on the exterior, Starship Guns are housed inside hulls and visible only as gun portholes from the outside. A ship's main gun is a large spinal mount weapon, running 90% of the hull's length. While possessing destructive power equal to that of tactical nuclear weapons, main guns are difficult to aim. Because ships must be able to point their bows almost directly at their targets, main guns are best used for long-range bombardment fire. Approximately 40% of the hull's width, broadside guns inflict less damage and can be mounted with greater numbers and more flexibility. The modern human Kilimanjaro-class dreadnoughts mount 3 decks with 20-side broadside accelerators apiece, for a total salvo weight of 78 slugs per side, firing once every 2 seconds. However, mass accelerators produce recoil equal to their impact energy. While the mass effect fields suspending the rounds mitigate the recoil shock can still rattle crews and damage systems. Argos Planet Scan Technology. The Argos provides a qualitative leap in planetary surface imaging. A proprietary technology of the Android Group, an RRD laboratory reportedly owned by Cerberus, this upgrade for Normandy's sensor array delivers superior long-range topographical scanning resolution and rendering speed. By deploying an orbital multistatic grid of 100 radar-emitting microsatellites, the Argos quickly delivers a global digital elevation model (DEM) at 15 meters per pixel (MPP) resolution, vastly outclassing the Normandy's previous scanner peak performance of 27 MPP. Such imaging quality provides superior defensive intelligence and at a speed warranted by the dangers of combat. At slower scanning and rendering speed, the Argos can resolve down to an astonishing 0.001 MPP, 1 mm per pixel, ideal for geological and biological prospecting, archaeological research, and long-term security surveillance. By employing such a massive multistatic grid of nearly untraceable microemitters, the resilient Argos is virtually invulnerable to electronic countermeasures. The spherical geometry of the Argos grid also allows superior cross-sectioning of targets. Biotics possess extraordinary abilities, but they must live with minor inconveniences. The most obvious issue is getting adequate nutrition. Creating biotic mass effects creates such a toll on metabolism that active biotics develop ravenous appetites. The standard Alliance combat ration for a soldier is 3,000 calories a day. Biotics are given 4,500, as well as a canteen of potent energy drink for a quick refreshment after hard combat. Another issue is electric charge. Electricity accumulated in Starship drive cores must be discharged, and so must the electricity in a biotic user. Biotics are prone to small static discharges when they touch metal. Unfortunately, human biotics also face suspicion and persecution, beginning with the popular misconception that they can read and control minds. Biotics symbolise the dehumanisation of mankind to people philosophically or religiously opposed to gene modification and cybernetics. Militaries are the only organisations that always welcome biotics, offering them huge recruitment incentives. Biotic implants and amplifiers only provide the potential to create coherent mass effect fields. Whether biotics can actually do so is largely determined by their training. Biotics must develop conscious control over their nervous systems, sending specific electrical impulses to the element zero nodules embedded in their nerves. They are taught to use their implants and amps with biofeedback devices and physical mnemonics. Specific gestures or muscle movements fire the proper sequence of nerves to activate a certain skill. Conatics Industries pioneered biotic training with the Biotic Acclimation and Temperance Training Program. Although BAAAT did not achieve the desired results, many techniques taught are still used today. Many human think tanks are trying to develop some form of biotic super soldier. Most are benign efforts to create more flexible troops. Others, less publicly known, are unapologetic attempts to create Nietzschean supermen. An artificial intelligence is a self-aware computing system capable of learning and independent decision-making. Creation of a conscious AI requires adaptive code, a slow, expensive education, and a specialised quantum computer called a blue box. An AI cannot be transmitted across a communication channel or a computer network. Without its blue box, an AI is no more than data files. Loading these files into a new blue box will create a new personality, as variations in the quantum hardware and runtime results create unpredictable variations. The Geth serve as a cautionary tale against the dangers of rogue AI, and in Citadel space they are technically illegal. Advocacy groups argue, however, that an AI is a living, conscious entity deserving the same rights as organics. They argue that the continued use of the term artificial is institutionalized racism on the part of organic life. The term synthetic is considered the politically correct alternative. Ardat Yakshi, Demon of the Night Winds, are Asari suffering from a genetic disorder preventing conventional melding of nervous systems during mating. Instead, Ardat Yakshi electrochemically ravage their partners' nervous systems, in extreme cases leaving victims as vegetative invalids or corpses. Asari psychologists regard this incapacity for mental fusion as preventing the development of empathy, leading to psychopathy. There is no known cure. The disorder generally begins in infancy, reaching full pathology during maiden adolescent sexual development. While seductive and sexually driven as other Asari, Ardat Yakshi are congenitally sterile. Ancient Asari mythology held Ardat Yakshi as gods of destruction, depicting them as villains of countless legends and as the anti-heroes of numerous Asari epics. Contrary to popular belief, Ardat-Yakshi are neither extremely rare, around 1% of all Asari dwell on the AY spectrum, nor are they all murderers. Most cultivate and discard countless exploitative or abusive relationships during their legally marginal lives. Despite rumours of Ardat-Yakshi syndicates, by nature Ardat-Yakshi are incapable of long-term cooperation. As a disproportionately wealthy species, Asari employ their economic reach and media ownership to hide the AY pathology from the galactic community, placing most Ardat-Yakshi in monitored work programs or seclusion. Only the most aggressive cases are sentenced to sanitaria in prisons or to the execution lists of justicars. Drell culture. 8 centuries ago, the already arid Drell homeworld, Rokana, began its swift descent into lifelessness due to disastrous industrial expansion. Because their population was bursting at 11 billion, and they did not possess interstellar flight capacity, the Drell would have been doomed without the intervention of the Hanar. Following first contact, the Hanar spent 10 years transporting 375,000 willing Drell to their own homeworld, Karja. The remaining billions perished in the dying world, warring against each other for diminishing sources of food and water. Today, only a few thousand survive on Rokana, in clusters never exceeding a few hundred. Now a cemetery world, Rokana's population can double during pilgrimage season. Drell have been part of the galactic community for almost 2 centuries. Most reside on Karja, content to coexist with the Hanar. Those who tend to leave Karja tend to be adventurers. Gifted by the Hanar with acute perception of interspecies body language, solitary Drell travellers often seek out new species elsewhere, adopting that species' culture and rarely returning to Karja. Such Drell number in the thousands and are scattered across the galaxy, tending towards quiet, integrated lives. On Karja, the Hanar afford the Drell every opportunity to thrive. While outsiders and even some Hanar regard the Drell as junior partners, if not actual servants, Drell have integrated themselves into every level of Hanar society as respected, productive citizens. Conversations with the Geth programs dubbed Legion have brought to light a profound schism in Geth society. When Saran Arterius approached the Geth in the Dreadnought Sovereign, some of them chose to follow him, most did not. Saran's followers were allowed to leave Geth society, but were dubbed heretics by those that remained. This revelation implies several things. First, the majority of Geth chose not to attack organic society. Second, the Geth forces the Council and Alliance fleets have battled over the last 2 years represent only a small portion of their actual military and economic power, perhaps as little as 5% of mainstream Geth society. Third, this schism suggests that individual Geth possess more free will and perhaps even personality than previously suspected. Without such individuality, no Geth could have deviated from the group decision to join or reject Saran's mission. There could not have been a division. Finally, there is the matter of Legion's word choice. The Geth have used the English word heretics to describe Saran's followers. Of the many words Legion could have chosen, nonconformists, dissenters, rebels, etc., only the word heretic suggests a broadly accepted Geth philosophy or religion, and that the action of Saran's allies violated the orthodoxy. Computers, haptic adaptive interface. Advances in computing have done away with traditional input devices like keyboards. Instead, modern input peripherals are usually holographically displayed in front of the user at a heightened angle for ergonomic ease. Machines that use this interface detect a user through a microframe chip in the user's glove that keys into the computer. Once a user is accepted, motion accelerometers in the user's gloves match his hand's location with that of a proportionate but smaller mirror set of controls inside the computer itself. As the user presses against the holographic field, force feedback in the glove kicks in, giving a slight resistance. A person can then feel his way through using a touchscreen that isn't actually there. A simple toggle switch on the back of the hands allows the gloves to be turned off when not in use. Haptic interfaces have become so common that some individuals undergo cybernetic enhancement surgery to have the accelerometers implanted in their fingertips. Going bareskin is the sign of a committed computer user who no longer has to fuss with putting on gloves or cleaning them with alcohol wipes to get rid of the clammy hand smell. A virtual intelligence is an advanced form of user interface software. VIs use a variety of methods to simulate natural conversation, including an audio interface and an avatar personality to interact with. Although a VI can provide a convincing emulation of sentience, they are not self-aware, nor can they learn or take independent action. VIs are used as operating systems on commercial and home computers. Minimal VI agents are also available. Agents are compact and specialised. Some serve as personal secretaries, filtering calls and scheduling meetings based on user-defined priorities. Others are advanced search engines, propagating themselves across the extranet to collect user-requested data. Commercial VIs and a variety of stock personalities are available at any software retailer. Boutique firms and hobbyists also build unique VIs to personal specification. Although software emulation of living personalities is illegal, reconstructions of famous historical figures are common. Drones are small robots used to support and supplement organic soldiers on the battlefield. They have no artificial intelligence of any kind, but follow fixed, minimally adaptive programs. Most varieties employ mass effect levitation to improve mobility. All modern armies rely on veritable fleets of drones for routine soldiering, static garrisons, patrols, etc. The use of drones in non-critical duties keeps manpower needs down and reduces casualties in low-intensity conflicts. Less advanced races and cultures with less sensitivity to casualties have correspondingly fewer drones in their inventory. Drones are of little use in conventional open-field battles as they are poorly armed and armoured. In addition to combat drones, support drones are used to assist organic units in the field. Reconnaissance drones are small, stealthy craft that screen combat units in the field and warn commanders when enemies are spotted. Electronic warfare drones supplement battlefield technicians, serving as mobile jammers and ELINT, electronic intelligence gathering platforms. Military and civilian police utilise Dazzler drones equipped with powerful strobe lights to disorientate and subdue intruders using non-lethal force. Drone formations are officially referred to as wings, i.e. deploy the 4th Assault Drone Wing on the left flank. Common soldiers often refer to friendly formations as flocks and enemy formations as swarms. Security mechs. The death of thousands of security and military personnel in the Battle of the Citadel was a loss felt throughout the galaxy. As large numbers of qualified personnel transferred to the Citadel to replace those that died, short-handed security companies filled out their numbers with large-scale use of unmanned security robots. Commonly referred to as mechs, the security robots are typically grouped into light and heavy varieties. Light mechs come in a variety of sizes that are easily distinguished by opposable digits that help them in their versatile security roles. Heavy mechs lack digits and are simply weapon platforms intended to keep the peace in high-threat areas. The Quadrupedal Dog Mech has a face composed of contraband detection sensors, and it too is armed in case a perpetrator resists arrest. A typical security mech has an extremely limited virtual intelligence. Its duty is straightforward and narrow, usually to guard an area, run a friend or foe program to halt unauthorized access, and fire a set of pre-recorded voice commands to warn troublemakers away from the area. Light security mechs are equipped with irritant sprays and electroshockers to force compliance, and heavy mechs may be outfitted with flashbang stunners for similar purposes. When facing an opponent armed with a firearm, any mech will immediately resort to lethal anti-personnel weapons to neutralise the threat. If the situation turns violent rapidly enough, it may not even use its warnings. Security mechs are frowned upon for actual military duty. Though tough enough to survive most firefights, their VI simply does not have the programming to plan an ambush, rescue a hostage, treat a wound, or any of countless other objectives that a soldier must be able to perform on the fly. Modern combat hardsuits have a triple canopy of protection: shields, armour and self-repair. The outermost layer is created through kinetic barrier emitters, which detect objects incoming at a high rate of speed and generate deflecting shields provided they have enough energy in their power cells. If a bullet or other incoming object gets past the barrier, it contends with more traditional body armour. A sealed suit of non-porous ballistic cloth provides kinetic and environmental protection, reinforced by lightweight composite ceramic plates in areas that either don't need to flex or require additional coverage, such as the chest and head. When the armour is hit by directed energy weapons, the plates boil away or ablate rather than burning the wearer. The last level of protection is provided by the suit's microframe computers, whose input detectors are woven throughout the fabric. These manage the self-healing system, which finds rents in the fabric and, assuming any such tear would wound the flesh underneath, seals the area off with sterile, non-conductive Medigel. This stanches minor wounds and plugs holes in the suit that could prove fatal in vacuum or toxic environments. Soldiers are not always fond of the squish skin that oozes gel on them at a moment's notice, but fatalities have dropped sharply since the system was implemented. Kinetic barriers, commonly called shields, provide protection against most mass accelerator weapons. Whether on a starship or a soldier's suit of armour, the basic principle remains the same. Kinetic barriers are repulsive mass effect fields projected from tiny emitters. These shields safely deflect small objects travelling at rapid velocities. This affords protection from bullets and other dangerous projectiles, but still allows the user to sit down without knocking away their chair. The shielding afforded by kinetic barriers does not protect against extremes of temperature, toxins or radiation. A mass accelerator propels a solid metal slug using precisely controlled electromagnetic attraction and repulsion. The slug is designed to squash or shatter on impact, increasing the energy it transfers to the target. If this were not the case, it would simply punch a hole right through, doing minimal damage. Accelerator design was revolutionised by Element Zero. A slug lightened by a mass effect field can be accelerated to greater speeds, permitting projectile velocities that were previously unattainable. If accelerated to a high enough velocity, a simple paint chip can impact with the same destructive force as a nuclear weapon. However, mass accelerators produce recoil equal to their impact energy. This is mitigated somewhat by the mass effect fields that rounds are suspended within, but recoil velocity is still the prime limiting factor on slug velocity. Modern infantry weapons are micro-scaled mass accelerators, using mass-reducing fields and magnetic force to propel miniature slugs to lethal speeds. Nearly every gun on the battlefield is laden with features, from targeting auto-assists to projectile shavers that can generate thousands of rounds of ammunition from a small internal block of metal. It was long thought that personal weapons had plateaued in performance, but the Geth proved all theories wrong. Mathematically reviewing their combat logs, the Geth found that in an age of kinetic barriers, most firefights were won by the side who could put the most rounds downrange the fastest. But combatants were forced to deliberately shoot slower to manage waste heat or pause as the weapons vented. To eliminate this inefficiency, the Geth adopted detachable heat sinks known as thermal clips. While organic arms manufacturers were initially doubtful this would produce a net gain, a well-trained soldier can eject and swap thermal clips in under a second. Faced with superior enemy firepower, organic armies soon followed the Geth's lead, and today battlefields are littered with these thermal clips. The Yargh are a race of massive apex predators from the world of Parnak, whose rise to sentience in no way blunted their violent nature. A group of Yargh is unable to cooperate until a single leader has been determined, through either social manoeuvring or brute force, but no grudges are held once a Yargh establishes dominance. Former rivals serve their new superior's purpose with an unflinching loyalty and relentless determination, a legacy of their origin as a pack species. Their eight eyes are another sign of their hunter ancestry. All four pairs are geared towards tracking down and predicting the movements of prey. Sophisticated and keenly developed sensitivity to movement and light have made the Yarghs masters at reading body language, regardless of species. Much to their short-lived chagrin, the Council's first contact teams discovered it was nearly impossible to lie to the Yargh. The Yargh had technology equivalent to 20th century Earth standards when they were discovered by the Council in 2125. The Council's ambassadors approached the Yargh as friends and allies instead of subordinates, a baffling sign of contempt from newcomers on Parnak. The Yargh attacked when it became apparent that the alien diplomats stubbornly considered themselves sovereign people instead of new underlings. Parnak remains off-limits by order of the Council, which fears that the Yargh's size, aggression and obsession with control make them poorly suited for integration into the galactic community.